Said, let's talk about delivery. Delivery is you've done all your preparation, you are ready to go, and what happens when you get up in front of an audience. Now, the first thing the textbook talks about, and I have it here on my little chart on the board here. I think you can close up if you need to. But in terms of delivery, there are 4 types of delivery we talk about. And we are doing actually 3 of the 4 in this class. Actually, I'm sorry, only 2. We've talked about manuscript is a written document that where you actually basically get up and read it to the audience. This used to be the way things were done in preaching. Audiences today don't really care for this. They want more personal delivery, face-to-face, eye-to-eye. Even in terms of videos and watching online, people don't want to watch you read your document. So every once in a while, one of the speech deliveries will turn into a manuscript presentation, but it's not intended to be that way. So that's the way it goes. But we're going to practice that with what we call this famous speech or public reading assignment, where you're going to be reading a famous speech. John F. Kennedy talking about going to the moon. Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream. FDR following the bombing at Pearl Harbor. There was one that Steve Jobs does that's great. Ellen DeGeneres does one. These are both college graduations where she does one that's hilarious. So anyway, lots of them out there. Go online, find 50 speeches, famous speeches under 5 minutes. You're going to read it multiple times, record it, audio or video, either one is fine, and then you're going to post that as we have the other assignments in the discussion board. So anyway, but for the most part, we don't do manuscripts in public these days, but it does happen. The Pope gives his sermons, Christmas sermon, Christmas Eve, and Easter, he does it from a manuscript. I've watched it on television, and hundreds of thousands of people. I thought I heard 1 million one time. I looked it up. I didn't find anywhere where it said 1 million people were gathered there in St. Peter's Basilica. But anyway, lots of people. Second type we might want to talk about is memorization. This is where you are going to memorize your speech. People who can memorize long things are heroes to me. I'm not good at that, and I've decided I'm just not going to do that. I'm not even going to bother getting better at it. I'm not going to do it. But even though I will present my sermons for several years without any notes, it's not because I memorized it. It is because I practiced and 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 practiced enough so that while I didn't set out to memorize it, I always knew what was coming next. And I had my PowerPoint presentation to kind of guide me in case every once in a while a slide would come up and I'd go, oh yeah, let me stop for a second, back up and talk about that because I forgot. But for the most part, it was just through constant practicing that I didn't memorize it on purpose, but I knew what was coming next. Memorizing is a little bit different than that in that you are intentionally working to know your content by heart. People who are in plays and all that, that's that kind of memorization. We're not asking for that. In fact, I would encourage you not to do that if you're not used to it. One of the points that the textbook points out, and I think it's really true, is that sometimes if you're not used to it and it's becoming kind of like a new trick you're learning, you're focused so much on the fact that you've memorized the speech that it takes something away from the power of the delivery. So I don't want you to memorize anything. Quite often in people's self-evaluations, they'll say, I didn't memorize the speech and this is what went wrong. Well, maybe they're just misspeaking, but we don't want you to memorize. Just be really familiar with your content through practice, 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 practice. I think I kind of made that point. Okay. A third type of delivery is impromptu. And if I could figure out a good way online to do this, I would have you doing an impromptu speech. This is where you're giving a question or a prompt, something like, here's a classic one. You are an ant eater. You are an ant. convince an anteater not to eat you. And then you have 2 minutes to think it through, come up with what your argument's going to be or your discussion, create an introduction, create a conclusion, and present that speech. And I've got a list of like 300 topics that people would choose from, but I just can't figure out a way to do it where, let's be honest, people won't cheat and take more time to create it and all that. And there's probably a way. I've looked online. I haven't found anybody else who's done it that way. So anyway, for now, we're going to do an assignment about learning about impromptu speaking. And the one thing I think the textbook is very helpful to say is, or actually my comments say it in some notes that I wrote out, is that whenever you go somewhere, always take notes. I always make sure I have something to write with and something to write on, and I will write it down. If, for any case, somebody says, hey, can you come up here and say a few words about, in response to the speaker, I've got my notes to go by, at least to guide me a little bit, and so it's not completely right off the cuff, but it is impromptu in that I have my notes to guide me so I don't look so dumb up there. The other thing they say is that your audience will have lower expectations because they know you haven't had a chance to prepare anything. So a lot of the pressure is off. But anyway, okay. Finally is extemporaneous. And I call this the sweet spot of all of the different styles. And I'll describe extemporaneous like this. On the one hand, you're not using a manuscript. You're not reading from a manuscript, but you have your notes if you need them to guide you or remind you. It is not memorization, but you are really, really, really well practiced in your speech, so you should know what's coming next all the time. It is not impromptu, but it has the feeling of being spontaneous, because while you're not lassoed to a manuscript or a memorization where if you get something out of line, it may screw everything up, you have enough confidence through your practicing, but that it allows you to go free and comment a little bit on something you may not have originally wanted to include. Or you can actually leave something out because you conclude that it's not, really doesn't fit the situation at that time. So you got that freedom. The danger is when you go impromptu in a prepared speech, you may wander too far afield and it's hard for you to get back all the way. Okay, so anyway, those are the different types of delivery in a speech. And so I'm just forwarding to my notes a little bit. So now we're going to talk about some speaker aspects of your actually speaking delivery. Now, I think, if I'm correct, you either have upcoming or I don't think you did it yet, an assignment on these different aspects of what might you need to do to fix them or make them better. And I'm just going to briefly touch on these and maybe comment further on some of them. First of all is volume. Volume is how loud you speak, how quiet you are, and certain settings quieter is better, but for the most part, if you're going to be something, be louder. If you're going to be one of the extremes, be too loud, don't be too soft. It's just the way it is. And in the videos I've been watching, I don't think anybody has a really kind of soft voice that's very quiet. Second is pitch, how high, how low. I would love to have a little bit of a lower voice. I don't. Apparently you can practice on this and pay somebody, a speech coach, to help you, but you know, sometimes it is what it is. Americans prefer lower voices. That's just what they say. Third, rate. How do you speak? Are you too fast or too slow? Now, I've made a case on this, both sides. On the one hand, speaking too fast, which is my tendency, you can just go too fast that people won't remember what you say, but a little bit fast gives some energy to your presentation. Speaking too slow, very seldom do I hear anybody give a speech that is just too slow and I grade them down for being too slow. You sound more reflective and, you know, thinking through what you're going to say before you say it. But I would say, if I had to choose between the two, I would say speak a little bit fast for the energy. People like energy for their presentations. Pauses. I don't pause. I say ums quite a bit. I used to not, and then I started doing it again. Pauses are, I think, the polish on a speech because they say you are well prepared, you are relaxed, you are confident, so you can stop for a moment. And it adds for emphasis, not because you forgot what you said. Me, I just go fast all the time. So pauses are good, and sometimes we fill them with the good old ums and ers and all that. Vocal variety. I have lots of vocal variety in my speaking. That's a good thing. People want variety. They do not want to be monotone. But again, if you are nervous, anxious, unprepared, you're probably going to be more monotone, and so you need to keep an eye on that. Pronunciation and articulation. Pronunciation is saying words correctly. Articulation is saying them clearly and emphasizing the right part of the word. This shirt I have on is a new shirt I got at Costco. Now, I'm not a snob, but I don't buy my clothes at Costco. I usually order them online. I get most of my Hawaiian shirts are Rain Spooner shirts. I love the fit, I love the styles, I love the colors. I can't afford the new ones, so I buy them, as they say, gently pre-worn, right? Used. I can afford those, 30 bucks, 40 bucks. I can't afford new $100, $120 shirts. But this one looks pretty good. Nobody's going to know that it's that. I was at a meeting and I said, oh yeah, somebody said, hey, that shirt. Yeah, I said, yeah, it's a Ren Spooner. And the gentleman said, oh, you mean Rain Spooner? Well, was I embarrassed? Maybe a little bit. But I appreciate that with kindness, he pointed out I was mispronouncing the word. So it's a Rain Spooner. Look it up. Great shirts. You can find them all over eBay all the time. Although if you buy one, you want to be careful because people will use them, and then the colors on the inside are brighter than the outside, but the outside can get too worn and faded, and people will try to sell their faded shirts at a pretty healthy price. I always ask ahead of time, is this shirt severely faded? And sometimes they'll lie, but sometimes they won't. So anyway, if you're buying Rain Spooner shirts, or other Hawaiian shirts too, I guess.